Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I am John Burt. Thank you for joining me, and I have a packed-filled show ready to go. And let me just touch a couple topics that I want to talk about is, the Berlin Wall. Georgia did something really smart. I hope New Hampshire follows them, so I want to talk about that. A little bit on Ruby Ridge. Michael Graham, he's a talk show host out of Boston, comes up here. What's that restaurant? Damn, I forgot what the restaurant was. He's always, it's right on the end of my tongue too, I'll remember it. But he's always in Manchester, New Hampshire, Michael Graham. He loves going to this one restaurant, and it just slipped right out of my head. The other is I want to briefly talk about a new friend that I apparently have. And then at the end of the show, I want to close it with a dear friend of mine has passed away. Normally I don't talk on the show about people that have passed that are close to me, but this gentleman deserves to be mentioned. Henry Volkmann is his name, and I do want to mention him at the end. But let me get started. The first one is I want to talk about over in Durham. They're going to make it that you have to be 21 to buy cigarettes. Now, the state of New Hampshire, the way we are set up, towns do what the state tells them to do. They cannot go out of that that purview. They just can't. But I understand Keene. Who's the other town? I heard Manchester's looking at it. And Durham has just passed it that you have to be 21 years old to buy vape products or cigarettes. Now, the state law, which was passed with the budget, and I'm going, all right, how can we pass laws in the budget that should be having a hearing in their own bill? But, it happened. Sadly, it voted in, and, we're stuck with it at 19. Now, I do not smoke and I don't vape now, and I believe you shouldn't either. So if get the help out there. It's like excessive drinking, anything else that's excessive, don't do it. It's not good for you. But at 18, you're an adult. You can vote, you can go to the army, you can lose your life for the country, you can do anything else you want, virtually anything else. But you can't have a cigarette or vape. In my eyes, what this is going to do, it's going to just force the kids that do this to the next town and buy all their products. And I wrote on my Facebook, what day was it? I can't remember what day I wrote this. So it was last week one day. Can towns do this without state permission? That's what I wrote. Will anyone under 21 just buy online? That's how they're going to do it. Or go to the next town over and buy their tobacco and vape products. I wrote Will Dover, but it's really Durham, is what the news article I said. Will Durham set up Checkpoint Charlies? Because I'm always against those when they set them up on the highway, and and inspect every car that comes in. Because how are they going to police this? So basically what they're doing is they're punishing their local stores from selling these products. And, just education is how we do it, not by force. And this is by force. So sadly, it's going to happen. I just don't understand it. And what it's going to do is it's going to take a lawsuit to make it stop. So somebody in Durham has to sue the town and saying, look, you don't have any jurisdiction because the state tells you what to do. So that's what has to happen. So we're going down a slippery slope with this. Now, the next one I want to talk about is the Berlin Wall. 30 years ago, what date was this when I printed it? 11/20/2019 is when I printed it, so it had to have been around that same time as when I saw this. 30 years ago, after the Berlin Wall collapses, Americans don't understand communism's danger. Let me read just real briefly here. What a difference 3 decades make. When the Berlin Wall was torn down on November 9th, 1989, I remember it, it symbolized the collapse of the Iron Curtain and liberated over 300 million people. That's a lot of people from the tyrannical grip of communism. That's what it did. But it says across the Pacific, the Chinese communist, let me finish this. Yeah, a mere 30 years later, communist parties are gaining ground again. And the free world is literally shrinking in size and spirit. It says across the Pacific, the Chinese Communist Party is pursuing a policy to oppression of Hong Kong. And they're looking at going over to South Korea even, Japan, North Korea, and a couple other, Nepal and a couple other places. China's looking at invading them, possible, to take over. We can't let this happen. Now they're saying, I didn't realize this, in Western Hemisphere, communist Cuba is dominating Venezuela. They've collapsed because of communism. And it says here the struggles. This is where the new Cold War, Hong Kong like Berlin, before it is the first battle. Hong Kong is the first battle. Struggling against communism is the most successful human rights movement in history. Yet it is far over. That's what the article says. And it just carries on about how the Soviet Union, when they collapsed, liberated about 1/5 of the population, about 500 million, 1.5 billion people that suffered under communism. And it just says the sooner we remember the lessons of 1989, the sooner we'll finish the work that started with the fall of the Berlin Wall. And they're right, we haven't finished it. Communism is well in this world. And I know some of you aren't going to like this, but socialism is a nicer way of communism. Let me explain. I've done it many times on Facebook and Twitter and elsewhere. Socialism, they want all your money today. They want to tell you how to live your life, that you have to wear a helmet in the shower, whatever the rules are, they're going to make up, the laws. And they're going to use the force of government, the police, the courts, IRS, in order to implement all of this. Communism, they just come to your front door with a gun and say, look, give us all your money, and you're going to wear a helmet in the shower or we'll shoot you. Bottom line, it's all the same. Just one's a little softer, but the end result is the same. So that's what it is. We got to stop this, and I hope that President Trump or whoever the future presidents are understand that we have to play a part in this. Now, the next one I am really excited about. This is the Georgia. When I saw this, and this is on CBS 46, so it has to be true, it's CBS. And I did look into it on other news outlets, and they are reporting the same thing. And this is on 11/20 is when I printed this off. After weeks of research and planning, the initiative was voted on by the Board of Education. This is Georgia's Board of Education on April 2018. It passed unanimously. That's pretty hard to get the whole board, and officially launched the following fall. For the 2018-2019 school year, approximately 28 staff members participated this year, that year. And now in year 2, 2019-2020, there are 45 armed staff members throughout the state. So what they're doing is they're arming their teachers. He wrote down, and I'm not sure who it is, if it's the sheriff that wrote this, because the sheriff was the main guy that was talking mainly on this. But he wrote where, like down in, where is it? Yes, right here. You may have 5 police officers on the street corner in Atlanta, where we would not have that here. Oh, this must be for one town. That's what it is. I'm trying to think what the town is. Lawrence County Schools. So it's just one county that's doing this. Well, I take my hat off to the county, and I hope it spreads throughout the whole state, and I hope we do it too. Now, this is what I like, because we have armed teachers and armed people in our schools here in New Hampshire, and I want every crazy nut to understand that, that decides to go into our schools and do any harm. Because that's what they do, the crazy guys, they just go there. Oh, and did you see the sign there? Let me read what it says. I love this sign. It says, staff members are armed and trained. Any attempt to harm children will be met with deadly force. That's what should be on the front of every school if we truly, truly want to protect our kids. I had this one gentleman, I shouldn't get steered off from this because I want to stay focused, but this one gentleman says we need bigger signs. I'm going, what is bigger signs going to do? Well, John, if they're bigger signs and they're at every entry to the school that says no guns allowed, they will listen. I said, the criminals? Yes. And you know what was sad? I think the guy was serious. I was about to burst out into laughing, but the guy never cracked a smile, nothing. I think he was dead serious when he was telling me. He was yelling at me, and my wife was steaming a little bit, and she goes, really? And I said, honey, let's move on. Because somebody that believes that garbage, you can't change them. But let me get back to the story. This is what I like about what's going on down in Georgia, this one county, Lawrence County. Staff members can volunteer to participate, or they can be nominated by a colleague. Each person goes through an extensive vetting process to be sure that she is qualified, which includes psychological exams and background checks. Then the person must go through a rigorous training, which Lieutenant, this is the guy that's talking about it, Sidney Harris, of the Sheriff's County. It's about 40 hours long that they have to sit through. They work with the SWAT team, the whole 9 yards. They explain how, if there's an active shooter, they get involved and the SWAT comes in, the police come in, what their part is. Put the gun down quick, because there's teachers that want to protect our children. What is wrong with that? But there are so many anti-gunners that just want to say, nope, we got to keep guns out of schools. And it's just crazy. Now, it says the measure has gotten overwhelming support from people in the community, according to Dr. Brigham. However, he says there are folks who do criticize arming teachers is primary due to the lack of knowledge of how it works and how it is being done. That is where the criticism comes from. There's a percentage, they think it's going to be the wild, wild west, that, teachers are carrying 9mm strapped on their hips, and he says that is farthest from the truth. The weapons are never visible. They are in locked storage cabinets, and the only time that the weapons are accessible is during a threat. That's it. He went on to say that it is very, very confidential of who and discreet of who's carrying. This is a perfect plan. I hope that it works out well for them, and that other states and other counties follow it. Because I think I told you that, in New Hampshire, we killed, Governor vetoed the bill to ban guns in schools and would allow school boards in New Hampshire to do the same thing this sheriff's doing. But I'm telling you right now, there's very few school boards, and Goffstown's one that would never allow it. They are so anti-gun, they would have never allowed it. So then our kids would be sitting ducks. And so that's enough of that. What's the next one? Oh, I wanted to talk about the New Hampshire Journal. Yes, Ruby Ridge. I do want to talk about that. Thank you. I have written New York Times I'll be honest, they did an excellent, and I'm not a fan of New York Times. They did an excellent, excellent job on this video. It's about 15 minutes long. I have asked if I can use it on my show at a later show. That's why I don't want to get into too much of this. It was back in 1992 about Ruby Ridge. And the only crime that guy did, Weaver, the only crime was he did not go to court when they said go to court. I hope that they allow me to show this whole video, which, why would they say no? But, I do want permission. I can use clips of it under fair use, but I definitely want permission from New York Times. But what happened is they set up snipers all over. There was no communications between all the departments that were there. The Army was there. SWAT, if they even had SWAT back then, they had the FBI, CIA, a whole bunch of other people that weren't talking to each other. Well, one with the snipers, they said, shoot whoever moves. So the mother comes out, holding the 10-month-old baby. She took a bullet right in the head, killed her instantly. She drops. The young daughter is in the video talking, so, and I'll bring in a small clip which I am allowed to use, and I'll show you this on another show. But what happened is I think the daughter grabs the baby, runs back inside. Now another department, because they don't know what's going on, they don't know the mother's dead, but now they start hollering to Mrs. Weaver saying, hey, Mrs. Weaver, do you want to come out? Come out peacefully, and we'll, make sure you're protected and everything else, and that way you can cook breakfast for your children in the future. The daughter said, that was pretty harsh. That's what a fiasco this was. The New York Times did an excellent piece on it. So I hope they're going to let me show this in the future. Now the next section is, like I was talking, was Michael Graham. He's a talk show host, like Rush Limbaugh down in Boston. He gives me a call, and I was like, whoa, Michael Graham calling me. So I was pretty excited. What happened, and I do want to talk more about this in the future, but the Democrat speaker has removed me from my committee. So right now, Goffstown, Ware, and Durham, from me, I can still sit in the House and vote, but I cannot sit in my committee, criminal justice. The reason he did it, now he says it's for other stuff, but the reason he did it, and I have proof right here that I'm going to go through, is that I'm too strong on the Second Amendment. That's what people say, that I'm too, I'm like just a rabid dog up there on the Second Amendment. I'm going to make sure that nothing passes. Not while I'm a state rep. I hope it doesn't. I'm fighting as hard as I can to protect your Second Amendment rights. Now, the next was, Michael Graham talked to me about it some, and, we talked on it. Now, Al Baldessaro also posted this, and, I don't have a picture of that one. But what he said is, Mr. Speaker, Steve Shirtliff, and he highlights his name. Why are you removing Republicans from committees and keeping Democrats who have said worse things? Why are you picking and choosing what is proper freedom of speech and what isn't? You seem to be silencing Republicans and letting your Democrats slide, which is true. And he carries on a little bit more about the freedoms of speech and how we must take control of the House in 2020 or it's only going to get worse. But what happened is there was a Democrat education, she was on the education committee, and she said, F all of you, and she said the word, spelled it right out on Facebook, F all of you private and school choice, when you don't put your kids in public schools. She says basically F off. She gets 3 months off from her committee, which isn't doing anything. Oh, well, that's pretty harsh. I get removed full time, and it's over the Second Amendment. It wasn't anything that I said. Now, the reason I'm not going to make a big stink about it right now is because I spoke with the speaker. 'We shook hands. Now, in my eyes, You shake a man's hand, you shake my hand, that's gospel. End of subject. It's gospel. That's the way it is. So what I want to do before I start talking about the speaker is I want to go up and tell him, and I just haven't had, I've called and he's out of the country. Where did he go? Taiwan? But I want to make sure he understands before I talk about him what he did. Because he might, say, well, okay, John said the fishing game was a terrorist group, which I did. They are. The head of Normando, not, the fishing game people. They're good workers. But the people that run it, I said it. I'm not apologizing for it either, because it's true if you look up the definition. So the problem is we shook hands on it, and in my eyes, that is it. The speaker has gone against the handshake. I want to make sure he understands and give him an opportunity to fix it. And, I hope he does, because if he doesn't, I'll be back, because it ain't going to be good. Now, the next one is I do have, guess what I have? I have an official, alleged, I want to say that word, alleged, stalker. Gracie is a Gato. She's on Facebook. Apparently she's talked to me up to the state house. But why do these people have to swear so much? Every word is the F word almost. But she just carries on doing some research on someone who is on my poop list. He laughed at gun violence victims, and I didn't. This piece of poop, and she's swearing all the way through, is going down. So what happened is they organized the anti-gunners to get me out off the Criminal Justice Committee, because there is 8 to 9 anti-gun bills coming. And they know what I do in that committee. They know I work hard, and they know they want me off this committee. And one post, it says right here on Twitter, John Burt, time's up. I was here. I yelled F you when you chuckled, which, I don't know what world she's living in, but she's just carrying on. And again, she just keeps going on, a lot of curse words. She says, I'm the terrorist, the man who scoffs at victims, which I never did, but, she's just off into the la-la world. She calls me an idiot, a whole bunch of other stuff. But then Steve McDonald of Granite Grok, he sticks up for me. And then at the bottom, she writes in, this is where she's following me. Oh, this is another one, JR Call 04. Eat poop now and forever. And it's all Moms on Demand Action, or whatever it is that demands action or demands something. I don't know what they want. But then the next is the Mike Sylvie picture. It says John Burt tossed from his committee for exercising his rights, and he just carries on, and that's where this Gracie comes back in and says, F you, John Burt, and she's carrying on. And real briefly on the, I picked up my pictures. What did I do with it here? It's the Kmart one. Yeah. Have you ever been, or do you ever want to go back to 1970, 1980s? Well, go to a Kmart, because they haven't changed much, and that's one of the things that, sadly, they're going to close the one over in Hooksett, which I do shop there occasionally. I guess, the old times reminds me of the good days, but, sadly, the Hooksett one is going to close. So if you want to go there one last time, get over there quick before it closes. And lastly, what I'd like to bring up is my dear friend, Henry Volkmann. Right here is his obituary paper. He was born August 23rd, 1930, and he died September 30th, 2019. And my wife and I went over and saw him many, many times before he passed. He was a very dear friend. His wife is just a wonderful, wonderful lady. Henry used to fix starters and alternators. A lot of people know him. I mean, you know, anytime I meet somebody and they say, well, where do you live? And I say, I live next to Henry Volkmann. Oh, yeah, okay, I know right where you are. You know, there isn't too many people. The next picture is 1947, and it's of his wife, Rachel, and Henry. And I believe, if I remember, Rachel told me that this was during the Korean War that he was in, and the picture was down in New York City. You know, Henry always told me, and I'll never forget these words, you know, he told me many times, you know, if I ever need anything, John, you know, you come over, because, you know, I go over there and help them a lot, and I like doing that. That's what you should do to your neighbors, help everybody out. But, you know, I really tried to make sure Henry was comfortable, and Rachel was a wonderful wife to him, and he's going to be very missed. And the last picture is of Henry. You know, again, Henry, you've been a good friend to me for a lot of years, and you know, he's going to be dearly missed. And until next week, I'll see you then, and God bless everybody. Thank you. Take care now.